Hello and welcome to another Big Finish review. In this review I'm looking at the latest in the War Doctor saga, the second box set, Infernal Devices. Now, Only the Monstrous was a pretty positive box set. Will this box set be the same? Will it be weaker? Or will it be better? So, without further ado, let's look how this audio is presented, and then let's go into my thoughts on these three stories. So for the box art we have the War Doctor, Cardinal Illustra and a Dalek, with some fire behind it and some metal structures behind. Doctor Who, War Doctor, Infernal Devices with the cast there on the spine. And there we have the War Doctor CDs themselves with a changed picture of the War Doctor so it's less colourful. Now to this sort of darkish greyish blue colour. And then we have these CDs. Now for individual cover art we have, for Legion of the Lost, we have the War Doctor pentagram. We have Shadowvar, David Warner's character. We have Collis, another pentagram and some energy there. Then we have the War Doctor cover again there and the plot of the story. The second story, The Thing of Guile, we have the War Doctor, the sort of space worm, and the Dalek scientist, and a Dalek, well, I'm not going to reveal because that's a big part of the story. And then we War Doctor Iden there, spaceship and an asteroid. You can see they've used some sort of into the Dalek sort of artwork, or like the Dalek spaceships. And even the mutant there. And on the back, what the story is about. Now onto my favourite cover of the box set. We're of the Neverwhen. We have the TARDIS, the War Doctor, the Dalek, and some soldiers, well, some knights, and some cogs and some explosions. So it's very action-packed, and a number 8, so that's to represent time, and some cogs. And the back, what the story is about. Inside the booklet for the Legion of the Lost, we have a lovely cast photo there, and writer's notes by John Dorney. And if we flip it there, we have the cast list for this set. Now for The Thing of Guile, we have a nice picture of John Hurt and Nicholas Briggs, and writer's notes by Phil Mulrine. And on the back we have the seal of Rassilon sort of fading away there. Now for the Neverwhen, we have a nice picture of John Hurt, writer's notes by Matt Fitton, and the production credits there for the set. Now for the disc art, it's exactly the same as the cover. The Thing of Guile. Now for the Neverwhen, and the behind the scenes disc. Legion of the Lost. If you're expecting Dalek action within this story, you can think again. This is probably the most Dalek-light episode within the box set. Now, the Legion of the Lost follows the same format that The Innocent did, in the way of it laying down plot points that will be explored in the further two stories. Now the question is, does it set up the set well? Answer, yes, it does a superb job, and has you hooked right from the word go as you are flung into the action. Now what I think is brilliant about this story in particular is, even though it sets up the box set, everything goes full circle within the adventure. Now with the Daleks not featuring heavily in this story, you still get a feel of their dastardly ways in the form of Varga plants, what have been genetically engineered. The whole thing of genetics will be explored later on in The Thing of Guile. Right then, characters. So we're obviously going to start off with the War Doctor, played by John Hurt, obviously. I will be honest, compared to Only the Monstrous, I was pleasantly surprised on how his performance had changed in a good way. As I felt in Only the Monstrous, his performance felt very restricted, and it was just him reading it off the page. Whereas in this set, he feels a bit more natural within doing the sort of audio recordings, but you can say that Only the Monstrous was John Hurt's first box set, so it's sort of an unknown entity with him recording those things. So I can see why, but it just feels a bit more, it feels more natural within this set, let's put it that way. Now there's a line in this what really does sum up the War Doctor brilliantly, and it is, he's a wily old fox. That just sums up the War Doctor in a nutshell. Now the War Doctor does get some fantastic moments. I think this is going to be a trademark thing of the War Doctor, and that is patronising the Time Lords. He still gets some very witty moments, especially with Shadowvar, David Warner's character, with Shadowvar saying, I conjured up a cup of tea from your mind, and the War Doctor's like, oh, I would have used a kettle. Moments like that I'm just really fond of, and he does get some fantastic powerful moments, especially his reaction to Jared's plan, with him saying death is the only peace and the only certainty they have. And this just shows how much the war has troubled him, and he's even questioning, are Time Lord hands better than Daleks? We see a changed man within this story, because he even questions about saving somebody. So we can see the elements what the TV series were trying to get at, but it just didn't work. But this story is actually starting to play with those ideas. Right, Shadowvar, played by David Warner. What a brilliant one-off villain he is. He's grumpy, he's smug, and he's patronising, saying the Time Lords will not understand their powers and technology. Now, I really like the idea of the Technomancers, with them amalgamating magic and technology. Now, this leads me on to another point of him being a great patronising scene, with him showing up the Doctor, saying, you know, your impossible is our child's play. Just the whole confrontation of the Doctor and Shadowvar is gripping and is really good tennis drama as the story goes on, as we see, you know, the full powers and capabilities of Shadowvar. And, you know, towards the end, he sort of reminds me of a Valeyard character, with his sort of creepy laugh, as, you know, the Doctor's faced with these obstacles of magic. And it sort of reminds me of the Ultimate Foe, with the Doctor and the Valeyard battling in the Matrix, as it were, really. But David Warner does a superb job playing this wonderful Technomancer. Collis, played by Zoe Tapper. Collis is one of those great one-off companions. What I love about her character is, in the space of 1 hour, her character manages to go full circle. As when we first hear Collis at the start, she is a completely different character to where she finishes. So her character has a great change in direction and thought, with her challenging the Doctor about moral questions like the food chain. And this, what I love about this story especially, is there are so many confrontation, because for good drama you need, you know, conflict, and this story has very good conflict. You know, we have the War Doctor locking horns with Shadowvar, and even Collis to some extent. So this is a great piece of showing conflict and how that creates good drama in general. Now I'm just going to quickly talk about Jared, Coordinator Jared, played by Jamie Newell. He's a good character to support Shadowvar. He has authority, and he thinks him and Shadowvar are untouchable, and their plan is foolproof. Now I'm just going to quickly say about their plan. This is all I'm going to mention. Is it's quite dark and is a bit twisted once the sort of big reveal of their plan. But that's all I'm going to say. It's a pretty good plan in general. So what are my overall thoughts on Legion of the Lost? Overall, it's a great story to set up the storyline of the box set. So if you're a fan of black magic and resurrection, and even Lord of the Rings to some extent, then this is the story for you. Hearing David Warner and John Hurt together are just electrifying scenes. You know, they both have such a presence within the scenes they are in together, and not to mention the wonderful sound design of the eerie chanting every time the Horned Ones are mentioned. And this story could even be hinting at the return of Rassilon. Who knows? Is that in the next instalment of the War Doctor? We'll have to wait and find out. But Legion of the Lost I will rate at the end when it comes to rating the box set in general. The Thing of Guile is a spy thriller epic. Right from the beginning of the story, you know what you're going to expect by this opening monologue spoken by the wonderful John Hurt. It's a fantastic monologue. Now this is the story how I imagined the Time War to be, with the Doctor being sent off doing these missions. And this is the story where we get to see the desperation of both sides using these new weapons to ensure victory, and we see how far each side is willing to go. Now onto characters, again with the War Doctor. He's quite sly, he's tetchy, you know, small things just make him blow, from arguing with Elistra, and his reaction to a character dying. You know, he literally pushes another character up against the wall saying that should have been him. You know, he wants to escape this misery, and he even questions to Elistra, saying, you know, not every Time Lord knows how to fight, and she responds, you know, war makes warriors of us all. Now we have the denial of the Doctor because he says an Earth phrase, and Elistra antagonises him by saying, you were quite fond of Earth, and the Doctor's like, in another life, but that's not me now. In this story we see more of the Doctor's side to the War Doctor, that he's trying to find himself once again. When he sees the Dalek experiment, he takes pity and shows compassion, and he has to be dragged away. So when we see the War Doctor, we see the War Doctor being quite sympathetic to even a thing Daleks can create. So that's quite powerful, that the War Doctor can sympathise with something what a Dalek has made. So yeah, that's quite an interesting thought, isn't it? Now, Elistra, in Only the Monstrous, she didn't really feature in it. She was very much in the background, manipulating things. Whereas this box set we start to explore Illustra, and we actually see Illustra do something. We see her engaged in a mission. She's quite demanding, and she has the Doctor on a leash, quite literally. She is determined to find out what the Daleks are doing, and she just wants to get the job done by collecting data, and she just wants to stay ahead and continue the war effort. So she's quite a powerful figure in this, with literally having the Doctor in control on a leash. Very interesting indeed. Now I've got to talk about the Daleks. The Daleks are written differently to what you would expect with their intentions. We see the Daleks' desperation, with them going behind Dalek commands back to seek new methods of winning the war. The idea what they come up with is quite startling as they begin to play with life, and we see them messing with genetics, with the Daleks thinking outside the box. Basically, Daleks are becoming to have imagination. Now, what I like seeing about this story is that this continues the battle of purity of the Daleks. The Daleks are always going, but they must be 100% pure, and if they're not, then they are, they're not Daleks. They're inferior to them. And this is also a big, powerful point what this story leads up. The purity of the Daleks will always lead to their downfall. So it's nice. What's also nice with this story is we get to see another rank of Daleks. We get to see another side to the Daleks. Instead of just seeing the drone Daleks doing the battling, we see the scientist Daleks, who are very sly and devious, obviously going behind Dalek commands back, and they even question Dalek commands orders. So this just shows that they want to get something done. They want to think outside the box and go beyond what any other Dalek could think. Now there's a fantastic supporting character in this called the Commander. I can't remember what Commander he is, but he's such a brilliant character. He's loyal, he's determined to give the Doctor and his crew as much time as they need, whether that means he has to sacrifice his own life. And the scene where he stands up to the Daleks is really harrowing. So what are my overall thoughts on the Thing of Guile? If you're a fan of the two-parter Daleks in Manhattan and the Dalek Evolution, then this is the story for you, but this is obviously a better version. And this shows how far the Daleks will go to win this war. It's a fantastic spy thriller with some excellent tension building scenes, from the space worm to the Dalek ships in pursuit. This is really a treat to listen to. This is how the Time War should be, the Doctor be on these little missions to help Gallifrey, and stopping little side missions of the Daleks trying to create these new weapons to win the war. So this is just a brilliant all-round fantastic story. Right, on to the finale, the Never When. When I listened to this, I came out a bit underwhelmed, in the sense of I was expecting the Could Have Been King and the Army of Meanwhiles and Neverwheres, but we got something completely different. I mean, it's still a good story nonetheless, but I thought this set was building up to that. Now I like how this sort of continues from where the Thing of Guile finished. The story itself, we see a difference, see the Time War on a different scale, and the main thing what makes me enjoy this story is the unexpected twist, what just happened out of nowhere. So it really catches you off your guard, and my personal favourite twist in this story is the Dalek reveal within this story. Right, characters, again with the War Doctor, we actually see the warrior side of the Doctor, what's been mentioned throughout the box sets, and we actually see him fight within this. We get a taste of the War Doctor in battle. We get to see him driving a tank. If that's not a selling point, I don't know what is. Despite him doing all that, we see him trying to be the Doctor. We see him saving people and trying to create peace. And this shows that he's quite reckless by going against Illustra's orders. And I love the reason why he's doing that, so he can have a respite from the war and he can be the Doctor once again. Now on to Cardinal Illustra. Her plan is finally underway. Now I like that her plan isn't really that noticeable, so when it happens, it's like, she's sly, and we see the full power she has, with her having complete control over the Doctor, with the Doctor doing her bidding, with her, saying the Doctor is Gallifrey's greatest weapon and hope. So we see that that Illustra has faith in the Doctor. And what I love about Illustra is, she just goes straight into business. She has no mucking around. She's just like, right, let's do this. So that's what I like about Illustra. She's no nonsense. The Daleks are interesting within this story, with us getting references to the Trans-Temporal Daleks from Engines of War, the Special Weapons Dalek, and the Spider Dalek. So what are my overall thoughts on the Neverwhen, despite being sort of underwhelmed by the idea, because Legion of the Lost was building up to this story, and I thought, oh, we're gonna get the king, could have been king. I thought that would be brilliant. You know, that's when I first read the synopsis. I thought, okay, this is where the story's going to take us. It's still an enjoyable story, despite me saying that, you know, that's me just being a bit picky with wanting that. But it's still an enjoyable story, with having a sort of genesis of the Daleks vibe. It has great imagery in your head of the War Doctor wandering on this no man's sort of land setting, and it's real powerful imagery in my head, because the War Doctor just fits that sort of no man's land environment. And it's interesting seeing the Doctor and Illustra split up, you know, Illustra on one side of the war and the Doctor on the other side of the war. And it's interesting to see the Time War on a different scale, on a different environment, in somewhat of a different universe. That's what I'm going to say on that. And it's a very good story about time, how time changes and how war changes with time. So that's very interesting. I do like it, but hey, I would have liked the Could Have Been King, but that's just me being fussy again. So there we are, they never went. Right then, time to rate the 3 stories then. So Legion of the Lost gets a 9 out of 10, a superb start to the box set. The Thing of Guile, that also gets a 9 out of 10. It's just how I imagine the Time War to be, as like I said in the review itself. The Doctor being sent off on these missions. It's just how you would picture the Time War. And the Neverwhen. This is probably my least favourite of the box set, and my rating for the Neverwhen is a 8 out of 10. So to conclude on Infernal Devices, this feels more like the Time War than Only the Monstrous. Though Only the Monstrous was self-contained, I feel that Infernal Devices feels more of a Time War epic, with us seeing new weapons and seeing the desperate struggle to win the war. We see more character expansion, especially Illustra, because in the first box set she was very much in the shadows, you know, towards the end of the stories. But this is where she comes to the forefront, and we get to see the full intentions of Illustra as a character. And she's integral to the main plot. Each story has a different feel, and it just feels refreshing going to these different settings and seeing how writers interpret the Time War. The performances are stunning throughout all 3 stories. It's fantastic to hear David Warner and John Hurt together. The sound design just excels itself. It really does feel fantastic, and the stories themselves just great, wonderful imagery within your head. And I cannot wait for the 3rd box set, the Agents of Chaos. I think it's just going to be another fantastic box set. So Infernal Devices as a box set, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10. Now I rated Only the Monstrous 8 out of 10, but Infernal Devices has beaten it by 1 mark. It is just a superb box. If you haven't picked it up, just pick it up, because it's on Big Finish for £20, and that's an absolute steal of a price, because all the stories are fantastic. And you know, you're guaranteed to like one story within this box set, because you know each story has a different flavour. If you know what I mean. That seems a bit of a strange thing. It sounded better in my head anyway. But there we are. Infernal Devices. I highly recommend this. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching my review, and I will see you in my next video, whatever that will be. So thank you very much, and bye bye.